We are going to be looking at some creepy videos, strange and odd news stories, and as always, let's go and get right into today's video. So apparently I had to take down the last video because YouTube removed the visibility due to a few things I said in the beginning during the Disney segment. So I do apologize if you were watching the video and it automatically stopped on you. I'm going to go ahead and play the rest of the video now. In this next interesting video, it was captured on camera that it was only raining in just one spot in Philadelphia. Matter of fact, it stopped multiple people in their tracks.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. There's nothing in the air. Hold up. Is it really? No. No, there's nothing upstairs. No, look, it's literally raining in one spot. Look. Well, let me go stand under it for good. There's no rain nowhere else but right here. And it's rain because it smells like rain. Like you can smell it. It smells like rain. Like what? And then what's even weirder is this car is sitting here with the lights on. Nobody's inside. And the lights are blinking. Whoa. Like what? This is just baffling.
Was I the only one that was instantly reminded upon watching this of the Truman Show, the scene where it was also only raining in one spot?
Can you please explain to me what this is? Because it appeared out of nowhere. There's not a single plaque around it. It looks like it either came up from the ground or plopped down from the sky. Upon further inspection, it has markings like a bird, a boat, a fish. There's a wolf over here, a turtle, a flamingo, I don't know, a crane maybe, a bear. What's strange is I come to this park every day to walk my dog. And normally it's just a big open field, but today, this has appeared. And there isn't a plaque. Like I said, no plaque. It looks like it was dropped out of the sky or came up from the ground. So should I call a historical society? Did someone from the Parks and Rec department drop it off? I just want to say it here. I found it. If that makes any difference, TM.
Now this was spotted at a park in Indiana, and it doesn't look like something that just fell out of the sky, but it is very interesting nonetheless. This kind of reminds me of when all those monoliths kept popping up, but the drawings also remind me of something you would see ancient people do, like ancient Native Americans. So yesterday, people all over the East Coast, whether it was from Vermont, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and so forth, all saw this very mysterious swirl in the sky. And you won't believe the explanation that they gave.
Look at this. It looks like a white swirl in the night sky. This view is from Danvers, although people all over the East Coast may have seen a similar sight. Eric Fisher is here with us now, and as promised, Eric, you're going to tell us what it is we're looking at here.
All right, hear me out.
Okay.
Aliens.
I knew you were going to say that.
All right, so the night sky has gotten interesting because we're sending a lot more up there. So there are more satellites, there are many more rockets. That is a rocket. So there's actually a rocket launch in South America late this afternoon. It's part of the European Space Agency's kind of full constellation. They were bringing a satellite up to space. But when these rockets and their boosters get up their high altitudes, sometimes in one of those stages, they will dump some fuel. Or maybe there's some exhaust that comes out of the booster. And so that turns to ice crystals way up there where it's very cold in space. And then any sunlight will reflect off of those ice crystals. And so you get that kind of fuzzy appearance on either side of the rocket booster. But it's very unsettling when you look up and see that. You're wondering, what the heck am I looking at? So thank you to that video. Many people noticing that in the night sky earlier on this evening.
So yeah, what they are saying is that what people saw on the east coast of the United States was the remnants of a rocket launch that happened in South America, even though a couple days before this, there was also a strange swirl seen in Ireland, something that has never been seen before in the country. And people were saying that it was doing all kinds of things and it had what looked like a halo. And they said the reason why Ireland has never seen a swirl from a rocket launch before was due to the clouds.
Y'all, Y'all, a woman in North Carolina uploaded some crazy camera footage from outside of her house. This was taken in her backyard. She has one in her backyard, one on the side, other side, and the front of her house. And this thing was captured not only on her backyard camera, but on the side yard camera as well. They said they came home one night. They were turning into their driveway and they saw something in the wood line. So they checked their cameras and this thing showed up on their camera. At first I was like, that is a creepy looking person. And then I saw the side camera view. This thing runs, jumps on this little wall right here, and then runs away into the woods. And when you look at the proportions of this thing, it is not a human. I am not sure what this thing is. But it really makes me think about that North Carolina 911 call. And what if whatever this is what jumped in the back of his truck?
So we have to be very careful here because of AI, and AI has been running very rampant lately. But if that 911 call from that North Carolina man was indeed true, seeing that giant white thing that ended up in his truck, what he described looks exactly like what we're seeing on this camera right here, then it's not outside the realm of possibility that it would also appear somewhere else as well, eventually appearing on somebody's camera. But talking about something else odd appearing on somebody else's camera, this next video from the paranormal chick shows just that.
I have some amazing home security footage for you. This was captured around October 4th of 2025, and I do not believe this is a ghost. I think this is an actual supernatural that was captured moving very fast across the screen. I have slowed it down so you can kind of make out what this creature is, and it almost reminds me of a dog man. Take a look at this footage, comment below, let me know what you see.
This one's really weird because the more that I enhanced the video footage, it looked more like something was riding something. Some are even suggesting that this might be the cryptid known as the Dog Man, but I don't know. I still get the sense just by looking at it that something is riding it and it's galloping. This was filmed back in 2019. This is the Kenai Peninsula Bureau Assembly meeting, and these are all locally elected government officials of Alaska.
We'll now have an invocation by Iris Fontana from the Satanic Temple. You may either remain standing or be seated. No one's required to participate. Please come forward.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Let us stand now, unbowed and unfettered by arcane doctrines born of fearful minds in darkened times. Let us embrace the Luciferian impulse to eat of the tree of knowledge and dissipate.
So Barry Stepp said, if this is going on at the local level, what do you think is going on higher up? And then I remembered things like the Lucis Trust and the United Nations. This video from Arch Evolution breaks it down nicely, and you have to remember we are also heading into their 2030 One World Government agenda.
As we all should know by now, the United Nations is set up by deception, and those who support it are those who want to keep the lies alive. Organizations such as the Lucas Trust, which hidden name is Lucifer Trust, support the United Nations. The Lucas Trust has a consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations, and the goodwill is recognized by the Department of Global Communications at the United Nations as a non-governmental organization. The Lucas Trust was established by Alice and Foster Bailey, and they established the Lucas Trust as an educational charity incorporated in the United Kingdom in 1935. And in 1951, Lucas Trust was established as a legal entity in Switzerland with an office in Geneva. A publishing company initially named Lucifer Publishing Company was established by Alice and Foster Bailey in the state of New Jersey. And all of this information you can find on their Lucas Trust website. And here are the trustees of the Lucas Trust organization. And here is Altion Charles, who's an X Factor winner, who exposes the Lucas Trust organization.
Watch this. This is Lucius Trust. The Lucius Trust is a non-for-profit service organization incorporated in the United States in 1922, and their objective from Lucius Trust website, dedicated to the establishment of a new and better way of life for everyone in the world, based on the fulfillment of the divine plan for humanity. The divine plan. A new way of life, like a new world system, like a new order. Now you want to see who they work for? The Lucius Trust has consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. The United Nations, the UN. They consult the United Nations of the world. They advise the United Nations of the world. Now look at this. The Lucius Trust's publishing company was founded in the early 1920s as Lucifer Publishing Company. The Lucius Trust says that the name was probably chosen to honor Lucifer. What on earth does a modern-day consultant to the most powerful and progressive force engaged in uniting all nations under one banner, the UN, have to do with the fallen angel of the Holy Bible? The one that Jesus Christ told us would manifest on earth as a world ruler, to deceive the whole world into a new world system. Yes, that angel. Why on earth would they honor that angel? Well, that's easy. They were founded by Freemasons. Incorporated into the United States by Alice Bailey and her husband, Foster. Well, here's a book written by Foster the Freemason, The Spirit of Freemasonry, published by Lucius Press, also known as Lucifer Publishing. And one last thing. If you dig a little, you'll find an article on their website, The Esoteric Meaning of Lucifer, on a modern company website with consultative powers to the United Nations of all things. Wow, I really hope you're seeing this. In the article, it states that the Baileys had enormous respect for H.P. Blavatsky, who stated in her renowned occult book, The Secret Doctrine, on page 245, in a chapter called Holy Satan. It is Satan who is the God of our planet, and the only God. Then the article goes on to say that the Baileys sought to elicit a deeper understanding of the sacrifice made by Lucifer. Everything has been reversed. Evil is good, Jesus is the enemy, and Lucifer sacrificed himself for you, not Jesus Christ, the one who washed the feet of his disciples, and the only one they fear. Modern progressive atheists do not influence world events, people. Satanists do. Remember the goal of the Lucius Trust? The fulfillment of the divine plan for humanity.
And let's not forget that the United Nations is connected to the Vatican and the British Empire. And this is just one example on how these government leaders disguise themselves as workers of God when they're actually workers of the devil, which means deception.
I hope everybody knows by now that the fallen angels run our world. The earth is Satan's domain, and his fallen angels are at the top of the pyramid, if you will. Now, the book of Enoch, chapter 6, tells us that there were 200 of the leaders of these fallen angels. They met on Mount Hermon and they signed an agreement. At the very top of Mount Hermon, there's a building that says UN on the roof, but that's not for this video. Today, we're going to talk about the Palace of Peace and Reconciliation. This is located in Kazakhstan, and it is to represent all of the world's religious faiths. Now, this is a beautifully constructed building, and it's at the point of what looks to be a phoenix. Here's an aerial view. Everything in this city is futuristic. It's all kind of like symbolic looking. Across from it is the presidential palace, and there's more kind of like symbolic stuff. I can't say what that looks like, but it's all very futuristic. What's interesting is at the very top of the Palace of Peace and Reconciliation is a boardroom that has, guess how many seats? 200 seats. Could this be where the leaders of our world meet? Here's the inside of it. It is really odd to me. If you really sit back and think about, the fact that Satan does run our world, and it's real that fallen angels run our world. I mean, it is a real thing that demons take physical form and rule our world, and to be looking at, a place where they might all sit and meet, it is kind of creepy. It's beautiful though. Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. Now, this building was designed to represent all of the world's religions. But when you read, it says that the top floor was designed a space dedicated to meetings with leaders of a particular religion. So that sounds to me like the top floor was designed for something special. Here's the design of the building. So the sunlight's supposed to come through the top and shine down all the way to the bottom. Here's some drawings of it, but I thought that one was interesting on the right. Kind of reminds me of the ancient Egyptian pyramids that harvested energy. Now, this is where it gets so odd, and it really confirms that this city is up to no good. Let's just put it that way. So down the river from these two buildings, you'll see this building, but then right in the middle of the river, there's a portal. And all of the spots around this portal, like there's one like right there. You can't, if you click on it, the portal's gone. So it does not let you view this portal up close. But if you click across the river, you will see it in plain view. And there's just people walking around next to a portal. No big deal. Probably grew up with it. Don't question it. Pretty bizarre, to say the least. Right next to the portal, there was this weather vane, and I thought it kind of looked odd in itself, kind of looked, symbolic of a portal. So when you zoom in, they always say that symbolism will be their downfall because it's pretty consistent. So we see this image here, and wait till I show you what this reminded me of. But it's this big circular thing with these pyramids, and they all have little animals on them. I don't know if these are little animals. I zoomed in and I can't really tell what they are, but just a big weather vane. Everything's circular like that. This is the first thing that it reminded me of. So it's always that circular thing with like blobs on it. And this is a monument to some god. I can't remember what god.
That video comes from Ashley Hayes 2.0, and the statue she's talking about is the statue that sits in front of CERN, which is a statue of Shiva. Astana really is an unusual place, and they have the Palace of Peace and Reconciliation, which looks very much something you would see out of the Free People Society, and it sits exactly 200 delegates, and you think of the 200 fallen angels. And when you see something like this, you just think how deep the rabbit hole goes when it comes to organizations like Lucis Trust, which is basically, again, Lucifer Trust and the United Nations.
About the missing 411 that will things about the missing 411 that will never sit right with me. Pictured here is David Paulides, who is basically the most well-known historian, at least when it comes to archiving some of these information into these odd missing 411 cases. So apparently somewhere along the way, he was tipped off into some of these odd disappearances happening in or around national parks, not only in the US, but actually all around the world. Him being a former police officer, he decided to put his best foot forward and to start looking into these odd and reoccurring disappearances. He cites one or two park rangers actually coming to him and confiding in him solely that there was something weird going on in the parks and they want him to look into it. When Paulides approached the National Park Rangers and wrote to them regarding asking for some of the information in terms of strictly numbers about how many people go missing in these national parks, he was actually met with a very odd response. Not only did the National Park Rangers lawyer up and have their lawyers start mailing him and asking him what he was doing with this information, but they also stated something that is not true. They stated that none of these numbers are kept, therefore they have no true count of the amount of people over the last 100+ years that have gone missing in or around these national parks. That brings me to my last statement, which is completely my opinion, but bear with me. First and foremost, logically, the National Park Rangers are a division of our own government and owned by our own government. So to think or even ponder the fact that they don't have access to these numbers is absolutely baffling, and I refuse to accept it. If I personally went to my town's, let's say, lead police chief and asked him how many people have gone missing in this region in, say, the last 10 years, I would guarantee you that even a local police chief would have access to that information. Now, maybe they wouldn't give it to me, but they would have that information on hand. National Park Rangers don't have this information is completely baffling, and I just see it as completely false. Secondly, Paulides was met with emails as well as letters basically asking him what he wanted to do with this information, and implying that this isn't really something that should be looked into. There in itself lies the proof that something is going on in these national parks and the surrounding areas. It just comes down to what?
The rabbit hole of what happens to these missing people in these national parks goes really deep, and I just wonder if a lot of these creations from these deep underground military bases go right to these national parks, or they're released into these national parks to then target and go after people. The stories behind a lot of these missing people are very bizarre, and if they do reappear for whatever reason, then it becomes even more bizarre after they describe what they had encountered.
If you don't believe that there are political and global principalities at work, you should listen to this. What is the 33rd parallel? It is a circular latitude 33 degrees north of the equator. It crosses multiple continents, oceans, and it impacts various regions. Historically, the parallel has been used to define borders, including demilitarized zones, no settlement zones, and no-fly zones. Multiple states have the 33rd parallel as their borders, and in 1848, Mexico and the United States used the 33rd parallel as a no-settlement zone between the two republics. During Indian removal, it was used to define the Osage border. If you're not familiar, the Osage are one of the wealthiest of our indigenous tribes because of the oil found on their land. The British built a grand naval arsenal in Bermuda on the 33rd parallel, and they said it was the key to North America. The U.S. also established the railroad on the 33rd parallel. It's associated with significant historical and cultural events, such as the Louisiana Purchase, the Roswell UFO crash, the Phoenix Lights in Arizona, which are these unknown, mysterious lights that appear and they don't know where they come from. Both JFK and RFK's assassinations happened in cities on the 33rd parallel. The first nuclear explosion in New Mexico happened on the 33rd, and then both Hiroshima and Nagasaki are not quite on the 33rd, but it's like 32.9 degrees, and then 34.1, so it's like right there. You name it, it seems to happen on the 33rd parallel.
Really makes you wonder how many of these national parks and these mysterious disappearances also fall on this 33rd parallel line as well.
One picture that I got from a coworker years ago that is the greatest example of a ghost in a picture that I've ever seen. And the reason that I don't doubt its authenticity is because it is a live photo, and I'll show you how I'll do the live photo so you can see the ghost kind of swooping in. You ready for it? Okay, so this is the hiking picture. The girl didn't see anything on the hike, but I'll zoom in here and you will see her in a second. Boom. There she is. Look how pretty she is. Her sunken eyes and her smile. There's the live photo. I'll get a bit of angle there. I'll do it again. You can see her swooping. And then from farther away, you can just see right by her head. You can just see her swooping in. It's pretty spooky, man. I mean, it's hard to say that this isn't a real thing.
What if the veil has been thinning so much that we are truly going to be seeing things more and more? And this is one of my biggest theories as to why they have given us such a powerful form of AI to muddy the waters.
Seems to vanish right out of a bar and has never been seen since. Hello, true crimers. This is the case of Crystal Ahrensdorf. Viewer discretion is advised. This case takes us to Dubuque, Iowa. That is where 20-year-old Crystal Ahrensdorf lived with her family. She, I believe, had 6 siblings, which consisted of blood-related and half-siblings. Crystal was always very, very close with her family. It was considered to be a very tight-knit family. She was described as a beautiful and genuine person inside and out. She was kind, she was funny, she was incredibly outgoing, and Crystal was a natural caretaker. Even as the baby of all the siblings, the youngest, she still had that caretaker-type personality. She also had a boyfriend at the time of this case. It was July 3rd, 2001 in Dubuque, Iowa. That night, Crystal and some of her friends and family were going to go out and watch the fireworks for 4th of July. Now, after the fireworks, Crystal was supposed to call her boyfriend to meet up with him. She did call him, they got into an argument, and she decided she was not going to go pick him up, which was the plan. And so at that point, Crystal, along with some of her friends, decides to go to a local saloon there. And her sister, one of her sisters, ends up driving Crystal's car just so that Crystal, wasn't going to get intoxicated and, drive home. The bar is closing sometime around 2 o'clock in the morning. Crystal is actually talking to and socializing with the bartender. The friends that she had gone there with all started to leave, and they were all gone by 2 o'clock. But Crystal stayed behind because she had apparently made plans with the bartender. Apparently, they were going to get a cab together, cross the bridge, and go to another part of town where bars were open later. Also keep in mind, Crystal is 20 years old. She is not legally allowed to drink, but she was being served alcohol. However, the bartender there says that at about 2:15, 2:30 in the morning, he is kind of cleaning up and closing up the bar, which takes him out of view so that he couldn't actually see Crystal anymore. When he was ready to go, he goes out to the bar. Crystal is gone. He thought to himself, okay, well, then Crystal just found another cab or something and she left. And so now he leaves on his own. I do need to notate that there is proof that this bartender got into a cab on his own and was dropped off at another location on his own. So technically, he's never really been considered a suspect in her disappearance. I was reading that he was actually charged like a year or so later for serving her alcohol under the age of 21, but I don't really know what else came from that. But once her family realized, she hasn't come home yet, and this is obviously her mom and her siblings many years later, they knew something was wrong because Crystal wouldn't be gone this long without calling them. And so they began searching for her. They tried to report her missing to police. Police were like, well, she's 20 years old. We really can't do much about it until, the whole 24 to 48 hours thing. But eventually, once that time passes, the police do now take this case seriously as a disappearance. And at some point, they do search the nearby bodies of water. They find nothing. They, of course, search the last known location where she was seen. They search the bar top to bottom. They don't find any evidence of foul play there. I don't know if there were any cameras, though. This is 2001. It wasn't as common at that point yet to have cameras everywhere. I do know that at some point, a couple of years down the road, police did get a warrant to search the basement of the bar, but they didn't find anything. And what they were basing that warrant off of, I'm not sure. Crystal's boyfriend was also, of course, looked at as a potential suspect in her disappearance, but they were able to clear him as well. There were a couple of brothers who in April of 2002 were considered persons of interest because they were at the bar that night. I know that those brothers had taken polygraph tests, but the results of them were never publicly released. I also know they searched one of the brothers' cars, but did not find anything of evidentiary value. Eventually, the physical search for her begins to wind down with no luck. They have hundreds of tips that they have to go through. They've interviewed tons of people. The bar was absolutely jam-packed that night with people. It's the 4th of July, but they have not arrested anyone and have not labeled anyone actual suspects. This is after offering financial rewards for information that will help bring her home. Obviously they had hoped at first to bring her home alive, but at this point, they do believe that she was likely killed. I guess a missing persons or cold case advocacy website received a tip in 2015 that those two brothers who were considered persons of interest back, initially, I guess this tip came that one of the brothers had actually borrowed someone else's car the night Crystal disappeared. But if police have investigated that angle, I'm not sure. But again, here in 2025, there have been no public suspects named. Crystal Ahrensdorf has been missing ever since, with no reported sightings of her. Bank accounts have gone untouched. Social security numbers have gone unused. The likelihood, unfortunately, is that Crystal met with foul play at some point that night. But who did that is anyone's guess. There is also a chance she could have accidentally died somehow, but they do again believe that death was ultimately the outcome. And they just want to know what the answer to that question is. Did someone abduct her? Did someone see something? Did anyone hear anything that night? And they are relying on the public for information. Someone somewhere out there has got to know the truth about what really happened to Crystal Ahrensdorf on that July 4th, 2001 morning in Dubuque, Iowa. Perhaps that someone is you. If you have any information on the disappearance of Crystal Ahrensdorf, please call 563-589-4429 or 563-587-3813. You can remain anonymous if you need to.
That great video came from True Crimer, and it's just so eerie how one day somebody can just completely vanish and never be heard or seen from again. And again, that's what happens in a lot of these national parks, and the rabbit hole goes very, very deep. But in this case, I do wonder if that bar and people inside that bar were properly vetted. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like, as any engagement does help the channel grow. Once again, thank you so much for your support.